Hello everybody, it's Tim here, and this is, I suppose, an epilogue to our tall tales. You'll notice that we don't have the normal opening or the closing, and there is no music, because it is my very solemn and sad duty to let you know that my dear partner, creative partner in this podcast and the emotions and feelings and intention behind it, the incredibly talented Eric Camilleri, passed away a few days ago. He passed on Thursday night, the 2nd of June, 2022. It's the following Tuesday now as I record this. And yeah, there is no music because it sort of comes to mind that old Don McLean song. I think some American Pie was the song, and there are lyrics in it that talk about the day the music died. Man, I'm trying not to cry as I talk to you, which is a little bit tricky to do. I've had more tears than I expected. I know that death is something that affects all of us. It's inescapable, mate. It's a part of life. I think we've spoken before on our Tall Tales and Short Yarns podcast group. By the way, if you're not a member there, we invite you warmly to come and join us there. I think we'll keep that group going. It seems an appropriate tribute to Eric. And if you've never joined us there, apart from sharing the stories on the podcast there and playing a bit of music, I write letters, much like the one you're listening to now, which I haven't written. I'm just sitting here in front of the microphone in my little lounge room here in the harbour city of Sydney. A little pussycats roaming around the place, and I'm having a quiet moment of reflection. And I thought it was appropriate that we have, I think it's called an epilogue, isn't it? A finish to everything we've done. We'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to listening to our stories. The music behind them, which was Eric's, was just so beautifully apt emotionally to whatever vibe the stories had. He and I used to speak on the phone a lot. If you're not aware of it, he and I have known each other since we were little boys. We were only 5 years old when we first met in kindergarten, mate. And we spent a lot of time together. He at my place, me at his, when we were kids, and we shared a lot of things. We were really, really close. Eric's family welcomed me as one of theirs, and I like to think the same from my family to him. He and I discussed of recent times podcast. You know, you, by the way, listening to this, you're pretty special, man, because we have a very limited audience, and it was never about that. We used to sometimes say, wouldn't it be good maybe one day to be acknowledged somehow? Which is our egos talking, and who doesn't feel that way, to be totally honest? But we both came to the conclusion that is important, is what we do and our drive to do it. And our drive behind this podcast was, in our own little way, a rebellious one-fingered salute to the horrible things in life, the hatred, the greed, the conflict, the inequity, the injustice. And we often discussed, what can we as individuals do? And often it seems as though there's not much. So storytelling and music to try and inspire some whimsy, some open-minded thinking, some passionate embrace of those things we find so important in love, and the truly only important things in life, faith, hope, and love. I keep saying love instead of life, but maybe it's the same thing. Maybe life is love, or it should be love. And love should be life. Love, as we've said before, doesn't have to be a romantic thing or anything in particular. It's a lens through which we can choose to view and interact with our lives and the world. And we try and spread that feeling and encourage others through empathy and understanding, tolerance and forgiveness, man. And Eric and I spoke at length about those things. And I don't know that I will ever again work with somebody so closely in such a similar and same mindset where we both understood it and contributed to each other. And that's where Tall Tales and Short Yarns came from. And it's kind of sad, isn't it? Listen. Just listen now. There's no music in the background. Because my dear friend, that beautiful soul who I love so much, and by the way, when we used to speak, we proudly said at the end of our conversations, "I love you, mate." And the other would say, "I love you too." And that's what I want you to take from this into your own life, and to be shared with those you care about, and to be shared with complete strangers, mate. I don't know who you are or where you're tuning in from, but I freaking love you. Because that's the only hope for the world, to encourage change and to improve our situations, is to have the freaking balls to love a stranger, to love en masse, and to love without discrimination. I think that's called unconditional love. Look, I don't know how long I'm going to keep rambling. A tribute to Eric. I'm so proud of the work we've done. In complete truthfulness, some of the little stories to the podcast here weren't so crash shot. We had 13 episodes per series. We made a total of 5 series. Might have been a couple of other odds and ends thrown in there for good luck, but in coming up with the stories, my bad, my fault. Some of the ones I wrote were kind of just fillers. You know, I wasn't always as inspired as I was at other times. But some of the other stories were quite powerful. And the contribution that Eric made, and he just got it, and that music just reaches in. Music does what language often can't. It gets inside and it creates an emotional response which leads to a sense of thoughts and contemplation. So I hope you might consider listening to some of them again, sharing this podcast with your friends. It had a beautiful beginning, and now it's reached its end. I was tempted when I was writing the other day something on the Facebook page for Tall Tales and Short Yarns about the beginning and the end, and I said how I was contemplating using the word tragic end. But there's beyond the tragedy of Eric's passing, and it came as quite a shock, let me tell you. We weren't expecting it, and it's absolutely devastating. But beyond the tragedy of his loss, there's far more joy, hope, and frickin' love, man, contained in the episodes of this podcast. So, tragedy and loss, comedy and drama, they're all sort of thrown in there. And that's our perception as human beings, as we travel together as pilgrims on this hard to understand, hard to define journey called life. Okay then, well, Tim Carroll here with Eric Camilleri here in Spirit Man, or Hugh Man as I prefer to say. We thank you. We send you good tidings and goodwill, and I just don't know what else to say, man. My heart is breaking, and thank you for being a part of Tall Tales and Short Yarns. Your input has been being our audience. The art that we created only has a half-life until it feels a conscious and subconscious reaction from an audience, and that's the really vital and important part that you have played through the giving of your time and patience to take the care and bother to sit quietly and reflectively whilst listening to our Tall Tales and Short Yarns. It feels pretty sad knowing this is it, man. You, man. But go forward in love. Try and take all of those good thoughts. Work on yourself to be the best version of you that you can be, and then encourage others gently, tolerantly, with love and forgiveness to try and do the same in their own lives. From Tall Tales and Short Yarns, thank you. and goodbye.